Hi guys, thanks for joining me. Let's have a look at what happened at the CAF Awards 2025. Let's have a look at the winners. It looks like Morocco had a great year, doesn't it? I think they went through their qualifiers for the World Cup unbeaten. So you have to admit that they are probably one of the most stable teams in Africa, on the continent. So at the CAF Awards, it looks like they did everything. They did a good job anyway. They took all the trophies, some controversial decisions. So let's start with the men, CAF Player of the Year for men. The winner between Hakimi, Othmane, and Mo Salah was Hakimi. In my opinion, that is not a bad thing. I think a lot of people, including me, were impressed with his performance in the Champions League last season. He also won his, League One trophy with PSG. But he has been one of the most standout players. Sometimes you might have a player like Mo Salah who over the years has been very consistent. So you take it for granted, this is how Mo Salah plays. So you relax about it, and I do relax about it because you know his quality. So for him to win it, you need to have a crazy season, surpassing your standard performances in the previous season. I think he was good, but there were also a lot of other players in that Liverpool team who probably did as good a job, and they would have won it despite Mo Salah's contribution. Maybe, but you're not hating on him. But Hakimi, Achraf Hakimi, in my opinion, is not a bad choice. So women, Chebbak, Morocco again. CAF Player of the Year for women was Ghizlane Chebbak. I remember her from the Women's African Nations Cup, and she was pretty decent. I remember highlighting her throughout against especially South Africa as well as Nigeria. She did a great job. But in my opinion, women's football, even the Ballon d'Or for women, I don't think the people who make these selections actually watch the tournament seriously. They just pick a name, whichever is popular. And for CAF, let me tell you one thing, what happened here, right? CAF had a big problem, have got a big problem because Morocco are hosting all our tournaments in the next couple of years. They are hosting African nations again for the men in December, January. And they're hosting the next Women's African Nations as well. This is the third time in a row. And literally they had this big bust up because they want one of the referees, the referee who did the final where they lost to Nigeria. They wanted that person suspended or not to ref in the African Nations Cup. I think they're going to be successful because they have gotten monopoly. They've got the facilities. So they, more than anything, they don't realize, CAF, that they're just diminishing themselves by choosing people to appease Morocco. And I'm not saying Chebbak is a horrendous player. She was one of the most standout players. And if I go, I'll have to go and revisit my old videos and share with you guys to see how much credit I gave her at the Women's African Nations Cup. She was pretty good, but the Nigerian girls should have been in the conversation. Ajibade was a standout performer, and I don't remember watching league games for women, so maybe that's what they were looking at. But no, honestly, this one I am not sure they'll get away with. But congratulations, Chebbak, you're pretty good. We'll see how you do in the African nations again, because that's probably the only time I'm going to watch you again. Goalkeeper of the Year for men was Bounou, again Morocco, plays for Al-Hilal. Right, okay. It wasn't going to be Onana, was it? Let's be honest. For women, Nigeria, Nndozie, she was pretty good, but the South African was better, in my opinion. The South African keeper was better from the African Nations Cup, and I know there are a lot of other considerations, but it's easier. Probably they've seen some clips of her because she plays for Brighton and Hove Albion. And then CAF Interclub Player of the Year for men ended up being Mayele for DRC Congo. We saw Mayele play at the CAF playoffs. and they qualified for the World Cup as well. So Mayele did a pretty good job. I remember watching him, and he was pretty decent. But yeah, Interclub Player of the Year. So plays for DRC, plays for Pyramids. And then CAF Young Player of the Year, again, Maamma, Morocco again. They've just gone Morocco crazy. And then CAF Young Player of the Year for women was Madani, Morocco. Morocco. Everything was Morocco. Coach of the Year was Cape Verde. Cape Verde, I think, have qualified for the African nations. So, and remember last African Nations Cup, how crazy the way they were incredible. They were very impressive. Like I say again, sometimes it's not about you were better. You are consistently good. Like certain nations, like Morocco are consistently good. Egypt should be there. But when you come and do something impressive that overshadows other teams that are better than you, but it's a step up from where you were before, you get noticed more. And I don't think anyone is going to complain about Cape Verde coach winning this for men. And then CAF National Team of the Year. CAF National Team of the Year for women was Nigeria, 100% Nigeria. The way they won the African Nations Cup, yeah, they were incredible. These girls, honestly, I kept saying, yeah, if you want to know how to structure your life, watch these women play. They go down, they don't give up, and they are proper champions. These girls are proper champions, and they deserve to win this Team of the Year award. And I swear they should have got the captain for, not even the captain, but Ajibade would have been a good contender to win African Player of the Year for the women, in my opinion. I think she deserves it more than Chebbak. But it's just an opinion, and I don't want to come across as a hater, but I watched these girls at the African Nations Cup. It's really difficult, The end justifies the means sometimes, and in this case, it didn't. CAF Club of the Year for men was Pyramids, Egyptian team. Okay, I don't watch a lot of league games in Africa because I just can't access them from here easily. It's really difficult. I do sometimes access DSTV, SuperSport, but the streams are really poor, so I can't do that. And then referee of the year for the men was I don't know his name. 𝗢𝗙𝗙𝗜𝗖𝗓 from Somalia. I can't wait to see him at the African Nations Cup. Like now, this channel is so new that some details which you wouldn't necessarily pay attention to, I'll have to start paying attention to right now. And then assistant referee of the year for men as well is from Djibouti, Liban Abdul Razak. Women is Nabadda from Uganda and Nndozie from Senegal. And those were the awards that were given out. So for me, I am not completely disappointed in the men's selection. Definitely, Hakimi was the most standout, even against Mo Salah, who is very consistent. Mo Salah is consistency, but Hakimi stand out. He won the Champions League in impressive fashion with PSG, so that is not crazy. Chebbak was very decent, very good in the African nations, but she wasn't the best, but pretty, you can't say much about it, but those were the awards. So, the final list of the winners is here. And yeah, that's what happened at the CAF Awards, but we really need to focus as Africa. We need to get more independent. We need to move the African nations, the tournaments, the qualifiers around. Some nations like Cameroon, unstable with civil wars and stuff and whatever. So I get it. They couldn't host last time. But so as Africans, we really need to be careful of these nations that are feeling more and more entitled to running African football, and they can do that because we seem to have got very lazy and not really participating in football. Football is a huge investment. It will improve our economies for the time that we are hosting it. And it was great to hear from Kofi Adams, Ghana's Minister of Sports and Recreation. He said Ghana is capable of hosting FIFA World Cup with Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and Ghana. They should be able to host the World Cup between them. And I agree, but they should start with hosting the African Nations Cup. We cannot have the African Nations Cup going to Morocco all these years and you expect to get it. You don't have the practice, first of all, or the infrastructure, the hotels, everything. Put those in place first and then think about hosting the World Cup. If we are not lucky, the next African Nations Cup is going to go back to Morocco, and that will be really disgraceful. We need to sort it out, because look at these awards we are now having, and look at the reaction to when a decision, which was rightfully a decision against Nigeria versus Morocco in the final of African Nations Cup. Look at how much entitlement came out of it. Look at how they failed to control the crowds with throwing bottles onto the pitch when Nigeria were playing Congo in the penalty kickoff. You had missiles being launched onto the pitch from the fans. They could not control them. So the order there is actually not good. The security is not good. And if anything happens and they are kicked out early in the tournament, I don't think we're going to have a lot of fun. So without too much to say, congratulations to Hakimi, Chebbak, and all the other contenders who won an award this year. It was great. Congratulations to them. Sometimes we don't agree on who gets it, but honestly, it doesn't take away from their efforts that has gone in, and I'm sure they're happy and they're celebrating, and we'll celebrate with them as we have to do. Right? Thank you so much for joining me. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys very soon.